Welcome back to Hidden Power. Today we are joined by the legendary Hoops and Hip Hop. We covered a lot in this episode, including our thoughts on Scarlett and Violet, Fakemon, beta Pokemon, speculation on future remakes. We discussed 2D versus 3D Pokemon games. Hoops also shared a lot of insight on what it's like to create a video game. Here's our conversation with Hoops and Hip Hop. Let's start with some speed round questions. What would your Pokemon type be? And then we also want to know what your Hidden Power type would be.
Well, my favorite type is Ice. So I probably would go with Ice. And then my hidden power type would probably be Fire, because that's...
Yes.
I don't know if I have a favorite type, but that would probably be like my default second favorite type, because Cyndaquil is my favorite.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm surprised that Fire wasn't your favorite type. I just fully expected him with the Cyndaquil, you know?
Yeah, you know, when I have thought about this before, I always thought that same thing, that Fire should kind of have to be my favorite type. But when I think about the Ice type, like so many like cool Pokemon come to mind. So yeah, I just kind of like went with it. But
right,
yeah, those are kind of my top two. So.
Ice types are great. Big Satitan guy over here. Big Satitan guy.
I love Satitan, but I especially love Citadel. When I saw that thing for the first time, I was just like, oh my gosh.
Citadel's weird. I honestly thought I would like Citadel more. Like, I recognize that it is cute, but I think it's kind of weird looking. I think it's very strange.
Is it the mouth? That's
probably
that's
the mouth.
what my wife has an issue with.
It's the mouth for sure.
I mean, they kind of like nailed the toddler look though.
Yeah, they did.
It has that goofy little kid type of vibe to it. So.
That is true.
I love its
Pokédex
page, like where you have them falling down the mountain and one sitting. You know, I love that thing so much.
But you like Frigidbacks now, though, too, right? That's what one of your videos. Yeah, I was thinking like the ice type thing, you know. So
yeah, so that I mean, that's part of why I love Frigidbacks, because it is an ice type, so just fits in with that. But yeah, Frigidbacks is easily my favorite Paldea Pokemon, and it's really weird to me that a lot of people don't like it. Because when I saw it for the first time, it was just like love at first sight. It was one of those moments where you're just like, holy crap, this thing is so cool. And I come to find out that most people don't like it. So it's kind of weird.
That's definitely a hot take. I think you're the first person I've heard that
it's so ugly.
Yeah, it's weird. Like it's not like I was like when I was playing Scarlet for the first time, I wasn't like in like conversations with people. I was like in my cave playing the game, like experiencing it myself. And I hadn't looked at like
you had an authentic thought. Like
yeah, it was like just a genuine reaction that I was like, well, I knew that I had seen Arctibax first, because there's a trainer that has Arctibax. Okay. And so I kind of knew that it was the pseudo,
right?
But I hadn't seen Frigidback, and so I was like, I'm gonna go see where I can find this thing. So I went and like found it, and yeah, I just found it in the wild. That was like my introduction to it, and I was just like, this thing is cool. And then when you like look at it in like in battle, or when it like is in like it's doing like its different animations, like in the picnics and stuff, it does this like angry, scared face where it's trying to act all tough, but it's just like this little dirt, and that just like gets me. So I don't know, cute. Like everyone else apparently hates it, but I can appreciate
I'll have to
that.
pick one up and see that. I'll have to pick one up and see it. I do love Arctibax. Like for me, Baxcalibur could not exist, and it could just be Frigibax then Arctibax and leave it as an Arctibax. I love.
What are you talking about?
I love no hate to Baxcalibur, but I think Arctibax is like a peak design.
Yeah, Arctibax is cool. It feels like, I mean, I don't know, that is that Raptor feel, right? It looks fast. Right. It looks like it actually looks like a dinosaur.
Right.
I'll give you this, Hoops. I don't like Frigidbacks at all, but I've seen like its TCG cards art. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a few of them that are just. I almost changed my mind. Almost.
Yeah.
I actually have not seen a TCG card of it yet, but I'll have to go look at that, because I love the TCG art, especially when you get into like full art and the alt art territory.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, TCG is honestly great. The art that comes out after a new game where there's like a whole new roster of Pokemon, it really does make me value the cards and the TCG so much more. Anyways, all right, let's go to our next speed round questions. What are your top 5 favorite Pokemon?
This is like a perpetually changing list. So
yeah,
what
we try to give you a little bit of a little bit of a range. You can like pick and choose your favorites.
Right, favorite Pokemon, and we changed it to top 3, and now we're having to do top 5 because we're learning nobody has that down.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy, but Cyndaquil obviously number 1. Frigidbacks I honestly believe is number 2 because I just had that,
no way
love it. I was honestly like, when I first saw it, I was saying to myself, I didn't like put this out there, but I was like, if I hadn't had the nostalgia for Cyndaquil that I did, it might be there as like a favorite because I'm not gonna like go that far, but that's how much I just liked it, and I can't explain it other than it appeals to me, I guess. But
wow.
So yeah, I would have those 2 at top 2. I've always really liked Phantom a lot. I always said prior to
good one.
Existing that Phantom was my number 2. And I also love you know what, I have a thing for round Pokemon, so I also love like Rowlet and Spheal. I don't know, like they're probably like tied.
What about Voltorb?
No, I like Voltorb is like, it's just like there.
It's just a ball.
Right.
It's
like,
just a
like,
circle. Yeah.
Like Spheal and Rowlet, they have the endearing cuteness to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're up there. And then Xerneas comes to mind. I really love Xerneas.
That's a good design.
So
very nice. Very nice.
It's probably fifth
Xerneas
slot.
is cool.
It's funny because like I usually like when it comes to the box art mascots, I usually go for whichever version has like the more fierce looking legendary. So I went with Scarlet, I went with Sun version, I went with Ruby version. Like I've usually go with the more like overtly just like tough and intense looking one.
Right.
But with X and Y, it was kind of the opposite. I went with Xerneas, like the graceful reindeer looking thing, because the design is just so good. Like the colors,
It's a very good design.
Yeah, it's just beautiful.
I love that your list is all these baby Pokemon and Xerneas.
Yeah, Xerneas is epic. Jumping off of that, what are your favorite games? Your favorite Pokemon game?
Okay, so I've had some time to think about this now that we've sort of we're sort of out of the new game season. Yeah, because I always bring this back up and sort of think about this every time we get a new game, and I always want to have a game that gets to my top spot, because obviously you just want to have amazing Pokemon games. And with Scarlet and Violet, when Scarlet and Violet came out, I was like, this is probably like, I was debating whether it was like favorite or second favorite, but I knew it was in my top 3. But now that the dust has settled, I think I can say that Legends Arceus is number 1 for me. Heart Gold Soul Silver is number 2. And then I think I would actually put Scarlet Violet as number 3. Yeah. Because the reason why I put Legends Arceus above the at the top, just because of just all the newness and the all the cool things it introduced. That was just like, it was amazing, obviously, and I think that's what Pokemon needs to do. And then Heart Gold Soul Silver is number 2 for obvious reasons. It's just such an amazing game, and it's just like so well put together. It's just so complete. It's got so much stuff into it, and that's why I put it above Scarlet and Violet, because Scarlet and Violet, for as good as it is, it obviously doesn't like have the polish that like a Heart Gold Soul Silver does.
Yeah,
but I still love like the open world, the Pokemon, the story, especially of Scarlet and Violet. So it makes my top 3. And then as like an honorary 4th mention, I also love Black and White too. So
yeah, that's a really strong list. I feel pretty similar. Yeah. I feel like I have a similar list.
Pretty much.
Yeah. As a Cyndaquil fanatic, I feel like Hisuian Typhlosion is a very divisive design. I've seen people say, oh, this is horrible, this is ruined Typhlosion, and some people like, this is such a cool take on it. What are your thoughts on Hisuian Typhlosion?
Well, I love that they added the ghost type. I think that's like Fire Ghost. That's just so cool. As far as the approach they took, I can definitely see why people are like divided, but I think the one thing that the design did, I'm personally kind of like, I feel like I'm just okay with it. I wouldn't say like I love it, but I wouldn't necessarily say, I mean, I guess I technically would say I like it a lot, because I wouldn't say it's necessarily any worse than like regular Typhlosion. It's just sort of a different, it's just sort of a different approach. The thing that like obviously is the biggest difference is sort of its like loopy personality.
Yeah.
I think the fact that it has such a distinct personality is pretty cool. And then obviously like the ghost flames are really awesome. So I would say it's like, it's not better, it's not worse than regular Typhlosion for me. So like cool. I'm about it.
Cool. That's about how I feel. I was curious to get your thoughts, because I remember when that dropped, like that was, and it was because like you said, like its demeanor just turned so many people off to it. Like I remember that was, and it was so sad because it was like, wait, y'all were so excited when you saw Cyndaquil was in this starter lineup, and you're immediately bailing on it. Y'all need to stop.
I feel like I don't really know what else they would do with a Typhlosion, like a ghost type Typhlosion, right? Typhlosion has such an explosive personality. You give it a ghost type, and it just kind of like is this exhausted.
That's the thing. It's an active volcano versus a dormant volcano.
Exactly.
Perfect, in my opinion.
I agree, but they could have done a lot more with it.
They could have changed how.
So it's divisive on here too.
Yeah.
Well, there were like leaks that were coming out prior to the game coming out that had basically hinted at what the types for the starter evolutions were going to be, and the fact that they were going to have variants. And so I decided to make my own designs for video, and like we didn't have any reference as to what they would look like, but we kind of knew what the types were going to be. So I made my own Fire Ghost Typhlosion, and looking back on it, I feel like I would rather have that one.
It was better.
But I don't dislike the official one at all. I will say though that I think I actually like Hisuian Decidueye the best of the three, because
it changes.
I know it's like
same.
I know it's like not good in battle, but I love the fact that they gave it the autumn color scheme. I think that was so awesome.
I did like
that. So yeah.
Yeah, so going back to what you were talking about, like how Scarlet and Violet, I mean, I think it is kind of, it is interesting. We were very close to the release of Scarlet and Violet, but to still see that it makes your top 3 list, I don't even think that's that crazy. I think now that we finally have entered an era of open world Pokemon games, it kind of makes me think like, can we ever go back, right? Can Game Freak ever go back to a non-open world Pokemon game, right? I think... Yeah, let's. I would like to take some time and talk about some things that you like about Scarlet and Violet, but then then we can get into the video game that you're creating, Histrobea Chronicles, because you did take a 2D approach to that. But yeah, so what are some things that you love about Scarlet and Violet?
The open world approach, first and foremost. I love just being able to go anywhere, like do anything. Obviously, that's like the main appeal, and it's just. I feel like that concept merges with a concept like Pokemon just so well, because Pokemon has always been about going on an adventure and like finding all these Pokemon like in every nook and cranny that you can find, and like that has sort of been like, I feel like the vision of what Pokemon is like supposed to be, and now we are to the point like finally realize that from like a technical perspective. And so I loved just being able to explore and travel and just like go where go wherever my interest took me, as opposed to sort of like staying on more of a narrower path. I also absolutely loved how they I think they handled the open world itself really well too, because I love how they sort of did the 3 story system and split that up to tackle whatever you wanted, because that honestly filled up the world itself a lot, to where it was like you genuinely did always have something to do, whether you wanted to go tackle the gyms or whether you wanted to do the Team Star storyline. Like there was a lot of variety there that I think actually filled up the world quite a lot. And then you actually had additional like side things as well, like finding all the Gimme Ghoul coins. I thought that was like, I mean, I'm not like a huge fan of Gimme Ghoul or Golden Go, but I love that approach to sort of just like stick that in there as like a collectible.
Yeah.
No, I think they did actually a good job of like executing the open world concept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they diversified the objectives that you had. I'm kind of thinking now. I don't think I've thought of this before, but like back in the day, back in my day, in early Pokemon, right? What I think I used to imagine like what it would be like if I went on a Pokemon journey, or like in the anime, right? And you have not only there's all these different paths you can go on. You could be the best water type trainer. You could be the best, you could be the Pokemon master. You could be a breeder. You could be a contest master or whatever. I think this actually, Scarlet and Violet kind of was a step in that direction where there were multiple objectives.
Definitely. Right. And as a part of that, I also love that they sort of did the kind of like pseudo 18 badge system.
That's
kind of how they referred to it in the game. It's like you weren't getting literally 18 badges per se, but they used like essentially they had 18 different bosses, one for every type that you essentially fought in the different storylines. And I thought that was amazing because like it just fits so well. And I also just love the idea of having like whether it be a gym leader or like just a boss or something of every type. That's just so cool. And I think the opportunity is like there with how Pokemon is set up to do that sort of thing. And that kind of like elongates the game because now you don't have 8 bosses, you have like 18, and like that just adds to the content. So I really loved how they did that too. And then obviously, I think it goes without saying, but the story was amazing. I would say it's probably, in my personal opinion, the best Pokemon story. There's some other good ones out there too, but like, especially at the ending with the Area Zero stuff, just like,
I feel like
completely just was blown away.
I feel like Area Zero kind of elevated. So I was not that moved by the story. I was kind of bored throughout a lot of the game when it came to the story. What I liked about the game a lot was obviously the open world aspect. It was actually being able to like interact throughout the world. But the story did not have me hooked. It felt kind of like, and I started to think like, is open world like a detriment to the Pokemon franchise, right? Or not the franchise. I'm not trying to be that dramatic, but just like a detriment. Like maybe it's not as great for the game, right? But it wasn't until Area Zero where they started getting very linear with the storytelling, where everything's just it's like here to here to here throughout the Area Zero plot line. That's when I was like, this is amazing. Like they're actually using bold ideas. They're transforming how we interact with the lore. There's literally time travel in Pokemon, which I think there has always been, but to this degree, not quite.
Well, I think that was the one, to me, was the one hindrance of the story, because I'm on Hoop's side on this. I thought like the story was just incredible, but I did, and I guess this is like a good point for like leaks versus no leaks. I had kept up with leaks, and so I was aware. I didn't know like the twists, like Arven's parent is really an AI. I didn't know things like that, but I knew once I do these 3 main stories, they all culminate with something in Area Zero. And I found myself getting to the point where like once I had like 6 badges and had done the majority, but not all of the Titan and Starfall Street stuff, I found myself kind of craving the storyline I knew was coming. And like I was like, I'm ready to get into the meat of this. But I guess, I mean, that's not a point against the story, though. That's really, this is the first time I'm realizing it, stupidly enough. But like, this is the first time I've realized, like, I guess that's the downside of the leaks this time around, was I wish that was something I did not know.
Yeah. I mean, it obviously all kind of culminates with the Area Zero stuff, but I thought, particularly with Arven and his storyline, obviously like that I would say is like the heaviest part of the story in the main game.
Sure, yeah.
Like that was kind of like they developed his character so well because I was genuinely like, I didn't dislike him, but I was like, this guy kind of like sucks because he's sort of a jerk.
Right. He is a jerk.
Right.
He kind of, I mean, at least the way I played the game, he, like, when it starts alluding to the whole like Mabistiff plot, he doesn't get away right away. It's sort of like secretive at first, and then he kind of and so I was like, is this guy up to something? Like, what's going on with him? And then it sort of like flips, and it's like, this guy has a sick dog, and like, how can you not sympathize with that? And oh, by the way, he has a dead parent. And oh, by the way, his parent got killed by this legendary Pokemon. And oh, by the way, they also have a robot version of themselves. Like, it just sort of like on itself. And I actually have a funny story. I was in the Area Zero part of the game, and as a Poketuber, and especially as like a full-time Poketuber, you obviously are trying to like just get through the game, not like rush through it, but get through it as quickly as possible so you can make content. And so that is what I was doing. And so I was up late one night playing through this part of the game, and it was late. So I was kind of dozing off, not because the game was bad, just because I was just like, I'd been going for so long. I was at a game. And I get to the part where Professor Sada is like, I'm an AI robot, and the real Professor Sada is dead. And like, I was like literally like asleep, and I was just like, I kind of like woke up enough just to read that, and like it literally got me out of my like drowsy state. I was like, what did you just say? And from there I was like totally there the whole rest of the way. Like totally, it was insane. So I think that's easily one of the greatest. I mean, think about this. In 1 year, we actually got two of the greatest like single moments in Pokemon history.
Totally, man.
That, and then with the whole Volo Giratina. So
you saying Volo Giratina gave me chills, man. That's such a that was such a good scene.
I love this take, though. I love it. I just heard a bunch of like a lot of negativity around like Scarlet and Violet recently, and you know, just that phrase that you just said is super impactful, because I don't know, some people I guess aren't as thankful as maybe they're thinking of being, you know. It's an impactful phrase. We did get those.
I am pretty easy to please when it comes to like allowing me to enjoy a Pokemon game. Like, I'll give criticisms where it's due, but like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are specifically looking for the faults, and when you specifically look at faults, you're gonna find the fault,
because they're faults.
But if you go in with just like an even level, and like, I would say, like, I can't lie, like, I'm probably biased in sort of like the positive direction because I want the games to be good.
That's fine.
I just take it for what it's worth, to be honest. And like, I would say when it comes to Pokemon games, because you realistically like aren't going to get a Pokemon game that's like just genuinely like terrible. You're not gonna get like they're pretty good for what they're worth. Like,
at the end of the day, we're gonna have great characters, we're gonna have great Pokemon, we're gonna have great music, and it's going to be the classic formula, right? I mean, and even if you don't like the new creatures, the new Pokemon, there's going to be old Pokemon that you're going to love. So it's like, what is there to complain about?
Unless it's Pokemon Black and White. And then if you like the new Pokemon, or if you don't like the new Pokemon, you're just kind of screwed.
Yeah, that's why you play Black 2, White 2.
Right, exactly. You wait.
Another thing I'm realizing is, like, you know, I think what made Pokemon so special was how relatable it was, and how we were able to, like it basically, you know, Kanto, the first Pokemon games, right? They were based on capturing bugs and snakes and little creatures in the grasslands, right? That's great. That's relatable. And then you bump it up a little bit, right? It's these magical creatures, but it's still relatable. I think what's really been really great to see over the last like 25 years has been that they are slowly introducing all of these really supernatural sci-fi elements, right, in story plots. You know, obviously it's not just Kanto. There's a whole Pokemon world, but now there's a whole Pokemon universe. There's a whole Pokemon multiverse. I think it's been really special to like see every time they just add another layer of lore. It's been really great. And this, like you're saying, like this was such a great moment to realize like time travel is a thing that we can actually interact with. And it's like, it makes me think, like, where is this going to go in the future? What's the next level going to be? We got aliens, right? We got aliens. We got the megas.
Aliens. Yeah. Aliens and time travel have basically been the two main things lately, which I love, and I love that they have gone full in on the whole time travel thing. I hope with the DLC they like really go in on it, and they actually like. I mean, I would love
Let
to
me go
be
back
able to time travel as a player. That would, but whatever they do, I hope it's like. I just hope they sort of like full send it on that stuff, which it seems like they're going to, because it's like it's the hidden treasure of Area Zero. So.
Right.
And they did that with like when we got Megas. It wasn't until the Gen 3 remakes where they really like explained what Megas were, where they explained infinity energy. I feel like it's got to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And if not in DLC, maybe in whenever there's another remake or whatever, next game.
Let's Go Johto will finally allow us to time.
I don't think that's gonna be it, but
I'm actually somewhat convinced. You might call this like a conspiracy theory, but
sure,
I'm somewhat convinced that there's going to be, after we get wrapped up with Scarlet and Violet, that something Johto related is going to happen.
Oh yeah,
because
that would feel right.
I mean, just like looking at like the landscape of Pokemon, Johto is the region that hasn't been seen or like visited in a game in the longest amount of time. Yep. So
that's
logistically speaking, it just makes sense from like a business perspective.
Right.
But also there is so much Johto stuff going on in Scarlet and Violet. You've got there's just a ton of Johto Pokemon represented. You've got multiple Johto Pokemon that either received like a regional variant or a regional evolution.
Yeah. It's true.
There is in Cabo Poco, the hometown, its opening like sequence is literally the new Barktown theme. Just like,
is it really?
And
I didn't know that.
If you go listen, it's literally new Barktown, like the first like 5 to 10-ish seconds of it.
Oh my god!
Wow,
it's crazy, and it's like, why new Barktown there? Like of all the you could have referenced, or like you could have just made it its own theme. Like, why are you referencing new Barktown? So.
I have not heard that piece of evidence.
That's kind of huge, actually.
Yeah, that is huge.
I mean, I've always thought that's what's coming, but that's a really big addition to the big theory.
Yeah.
So, it just kind of seems right to me, and then obviously you've got Walking Wake, and potentially you've got the other two beasts that are going to get paradox forms. So, it seems like something is going to happen, and I don't want to get my hopes up, but if I'm just like thinking of if they're going to do something Johto related, what would that be like realistically? I honestly think the most logical thing that makes most sense is like a Legends game, because I feel like we're sort of past the Let's Go time frame for that to like be like a likelihood, and you could do like a standard second remake. But I mean, I think the whole reason they did like the second remake for Kanto in Let's Go was because of the whole Go connection, so that had like a niche that was feeling. Whereas
I also think there's a lot of similarities between Let's Go and Legends. They're both like games that focus on capturing in open world like areas. So not that Let's Go is an open world game, but I mean like with the overworld Pokemon. So yeah, I think it also could be just a new game that we don't even know what kind of game it could be.
Like their next Legends Let's Go.
And then it's just in Johto. Right, I think that would be nice. I think that would feel very well, and then also that's an excuse to make also like what's so great about Johto? It's post game Kanto, so like that. Like, why would they not want to make another Kanto game?
I am thinking like I'm on the same page as you, like where it makes the most sense that it would come next, because like if you look after Oris, the next remake, they revisited Kanto. They didn't go Sinnoh, they went to Kanto because that was the game that. It had been the longest since we had seen, and unless you consider Heart Gold Soul Silver, which I wouldn't, because that was not primarily a Kanto game. But then you would think that now would be Johto. The only thing that kind of holds me back is like Pokemon has recently just really wanted us to not know what's coming. Yeah. Like with, I mean, you know, dropping the bombshell that, oh, there's no third version to Sword and Shield. We're just doing DLC for it, and that is your third versions now. Then the bombshell of, yeah, you're getting your Sinnoh remake, but we're also doing Legends. And things like that. And even Scarlet and Violet, even though it was time for it, you know, that took a lot of people by surprise that they were dropping Gen 9 because just a month prior, they had dropped Legends Arceus. But, so I am like, there is a part of me that thinks they might skip Johto and come back to it, of course, but just to keep us like on our toes. Like, imagine next year on Pokemon Day, they announce Black 3, White 3.
Any of these realities I can imagine. Like right. If I close my eyes, I go, no, it's like that could happen. I can see it happening.
Right. I'm trying to expect the unexpected, you know? Like, think about what Pokemon doesn't want us to think is coming.
Yeah, a Lola sequel.
Alola Legends, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely true. I do feel like I feel like it's going to be in the Legends direction, though, like if anything were to happen. And also the other thing about this that sort of makes me feel like it just makes sense is the fact that it sort of fills a slot in like Pokemon's time frame, because we got this year, we're getting DLC, obviously. And then if you want to like look at the standard 3-year schedule that Pokemon is typically on for their generations, that would mean that 2024 is a year that's still within Gen 9, but doesn't have anything that we know of currently. And as we all know, Pokemon has been releasing a game every year since 2016 with Sun and Moon. So what they want to do. So we can probably expect something to happen in terms of like main series games. And it's like, what are they going to do? I personally think it's a little too soon to do the whole Gen 5 remake.
100%. I still get those comments and I'm like, it's been 3 years or will have been 3 years since the Sinnoh remakes.
Yeah. And they usually do it every like couple of generations. The only time when they did it like back-to-back generations was with Fire Red, Leaf Green, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. After that, it was Gen 6 for Oraz and Gen 8 for Diamond Pearl.
And some of that was because like those games or those regions weren't available in Gen 3 and 4, right? They had just been cut off from the Game Boy, right? Like the Game Boy Color. Those games were no longer, you couldn't bring those Pokemon up. They wanted to, and it was so long ago, right? Things have changed.
My biggest fear is that we do get a Johto game, but it's an Ilka made like BDSP style Johto. Yeah, I will cry. Because like I'm most excited to revisit Johto. So my fear is like, because that was the thing. I was so excited to revisit Sinnoh. If Legends Arceus was not announced last year, Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl would have that would have hurt.
Like BDSP to Scarlet and Violet with all the bug issues. Right? I feel like Legends kind of like was a saving grace for the franchise.
Oh, it was.
They knew that though.
Like for the masses. Like we said in the beginning, there's something to appreciate about all these games. But, you know, I feel like Legends just like it was simple in its execution and it got it right.
Yeah, definitely. It did. It was such a good game. It was such a good game. The only thing that like I hate for Legends is that I feel like I'm super happy that Scarlet and Violet came out when it did. I'm always for a new Pokemon game. I'm what they refer to as a Game Freak shill, where, you know, like Game Freak can release a buggy mess and I'm going to buy it and I'm going to say I love this game. But I was a little upset, like with Legends Arceus, how you could see the attention completely turned away from it only a month after it was released, because they announced Scarlet and Violet. And that was bittersweet. Like, yay, a new generation, new starter Pokemon. But it was also like, man, Legends Arceus deserves better than this.
This soon? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm pretty sure it was probably COVID related, but I am personally convinced that BDSP wasn't even going to be a thing, and like Legends Arceus was the Sinnoh remake, because it goes back to what Lumios was saying about like that's like the exact type of thing they want to do is like do something we're not expecting, and everyone was talking about Sinnoh remakes like for years prior up to that point.
The Centret
they
meme.
knew what people wanted. So they sort of like put a twist on it, and I feel like in a nutshell, something happened with Legends that it had to be delayed. Hence why it released in January, because like they're not going to release a game in January,
right?
Like,
unless they have to.
Isn't happening,
yeah,
you know,
Mm-hmm.
like that makes no sense, and it also makes no sense to have 2 games release within 2 months of each other.
I feel like they could have very easily, or maybe originally Legends was planned to have 2 different versions, Pearl and Diamond Clan, right? You could have just as easily made those separate versions. But then they were like, well, if we got to put it in January, let's just make it 1 game. Are people really going to buy 4 games in 3 months? Right?
It's possible.
Right, yeah. I think something happened. They had to delay it, but obviously they're like all about their schedules and meeting their deadlines. So they're like, we don't want to miss a holiday release either. And so they were just like, let's commission Ilka to make a standard remake and just rush it out the door. So, yeah, I feel like Legends was the primary game rather than BDSP. And it's funny,
Sure.
You mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, like, are we ever going to go back to like 2D style Pokemon versus open world? I feel like the answer is probably no, unless they do like a super retro, like pixel style game, because of like what happened with BDSP. Like the huge backlash that game got was obviously with the graphical style they chose. Mm-hmm. But other than that, it's Diamond and Pearl on the Switch. And that's why, like, for as much as I like didn't like the graphical style, I still had a good time with it and actually found myself while I was playing it being like, you know, it's kind of nice to like revisit the classic format of Pokemon where it's like linear and you have HMs and it's like just like the throwback pre sort of like Gen 7, Gen 6 era stuff. Like it was nice to be able to visit that again. But people like did not care about that and just destroyed that game and like threw it in the dirt. And so I feel like open world is going to be the way to go unless they do it like a pixel style game, because they know that everyone loves the pixels and that's just a nostalgic thing. So I think if they're going to do another 2D game, that would be the way they would have to do it.
I think the biggest problem with BDSP was that they didn't actually, there were so many ingrained existing improvements in Platinum that they should have just added to the game. Right?
I don't even think that was the problem with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. The problem with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl was not only was there no Platinum features, which, to be honest, I wasn't expecting anyways, because
I was.
Oris didn't have anything from Emerald, really.
That's not true. It does.
What did it have from Emerald?
It has
I'm not testing. I'm genuinely asking.
From what I remember, because it actually has been quite a few years, I think it just has. So it has the whole. What is it? Rayquaza. Rayquaza is what I was trying to.
Rayquaza's in the base game. They just gave him a little plot at the end, and it's not.
Yeah, but that's the plot. Is it not the Emerald plot?
Right, but see, I mean, by that logic, you could say Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl had Platinum. You got to go to the Distortion Room. You know, I mean,
you did. Technically.
I feel like it's a thin argument. Like they left out the Battle Frontier was the big thing in Oris. But like for me, Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, it wasn't that there was no Platinum things. It was they took the things that I liked in Diamond and Pearl and they literally made it worse. Like the contests are so much worse than they were in Diamond and Pearl. Then the Underground.
Yeah, the Underground was a huge
like,
improvement, but they should have left the bases.
Shiny hunters probably like the Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl Underground more, but for me, I wanted to play Capture the Flag, and you took that from me.
Yeah.
Maybe that's stupid, but that was my big thing. When I saw there was no Capture the Flag, I was like, get this out of here.
I think I think there was also a big issue for me with BDSP that like it was the like boxy square map of, it was like the same exact map from Diamond and Pearl, but you could then move in, what is it called, like in like 360 directions. Yeah, so like things would clip all the time. And I guess then that goes into like I don't know. I guess I don't have all my talking points. I have like the memories of being upset, but it's like it has been like a year since I played the game, so maybe I don't have all my good talking points right now.
I mean,
but
I gotta agree with Hoops though. Like you guys know, I don't really play Pokemon games over too many times, so going back to BDSP was like really fresh. I felt like I hadn't played Diamond and Pearl in so long, and it was actually It was more enjoyable than Let's Go for me.
For sure. I actually finished Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. I never finished Let's Go.
Yeah. No,
I beat the 8th gym and was like, my Pokemon are like level 80. I'm not going to the Elite Four.
I've heard people say that and about Let's Go. So like you're not the only one I've heard that from. And I honestly don't get that because
you don't get the hatred for Let's Go?
Well,
is that what you're saying?
I do and I don't, because I get where people are coming from in the sense that obviously you have no wild battles and it's just a catching mechanic like Go is and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it really isn't that different. You're getting like 80 to 90% of like a standard main series Pokemon game, and it's like a 3D Kanto remake, which is gorgeous, by the way. Like
it's
the Let's Go
nice.
It is a very gorgeous art style.
Yeah.
And also you get overworld Pokemon for the first time. You get riding Pokemon. You actually have following Pokemon that actually like work and aren't like weird like they are in the newer game. Like there's and you have Mega Evolution too in Kanto.
I'm with you.
I know there are some things about it that aren't as favorable as like the other Kanto games, but by and large, it's like awesome. And for me, I found the catching mechanic to be sort of like it added a fun, interesting layer, especially when it came to like catching legendaries.
Yeah, because it was different.
It made catching them actually like hard instead of just like press A to win. Basically, it added a new dynamic.
I would be fine with a mix of it. For me, it was really, I mean, at the end of the day, my big issue with Let's Go was exactly what you said, the no wild battles. And it was purely because, to me, one thing I love about Pokemon, like the thing that I most, I guess, hold Pokemon to, if that's the right way to word that, is I want to feel immersed in it. Yeah. And so I love getting attached to my team. I love, if you ever play a Nuzlocke, like, I love actually screaming out loud when my Pokemon faints, because that means it's now dead. And with Let's Go, when I played through it, I just found, like, I'm not attached to my team, because I only see them when they're either running with me but like I'm never using them unless it's like a trainer battle, and there's not that many of those. Every time I'm catching a wild Pokemon, it's just toss it. It just felt very, I guess, distant to me.
Yeah, I think I think that's a part of the frustration people had with Let's Go and BDSP, and some people had with Scarlet and Violet, where there's like if there's a real world, like if there's friction between me and my experience with the game, that's just gonna like I'm never gonna be fully immersed. And I feel like for me, when I was playing Legends Arceus, I was in the game. Like I feel like I was like I never was like, oh, the button doesn't work right, or my game's clipping, or it. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like Legends never had any of that. And a lot of the older games also don't have those issues. I used to love that old Pokemon games. There was never a loading screen. That was what that was like the coolest thing. I'm like, all my other friends, they're playing stupid PlayStation games. They're always loading, like screw that, Nintendo for life. And I feel like that it's catching up. It's like that's actually for the first time appearing in the Pokemon franchise, and I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. But to go back to what we were talking about, like I want to say I didn't love BDSP because I think Ilka could do such a great job, or whatever company could do such a great job remaking these classic 2D games in a 3D engine, right? Or like a top down, right?
I'd rather just have ports.
Well, I think these are glorified ports where then you could outsource.
But I don't want $60 ports. I want ports that come with my Nintendo Online.
Well, this is what it is. It's worth $60 if they actually add new features to it, right? If they add post game elements to it. If you take Fire Red Leaf Green,
post games though.
if you take Emerald, if you take Heart Gold Soul Silver, remake it in that Ilka engine, right, and then actually add randomly Sevi Islands or whatever, right? Like it doesn't need to be like
Heart Gold Soul
from
Silver
my
doesn't
brain.
need that. They have a whole region.
I know. Okay, but like I feel like they could add so much more, and there's potential there where it would be worth $60.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't even need more. Put that in Scarlet and Violet. When I'm done with Scarlet and Violet, there's nothing else to do. So give me that in Scarlet and Violet. Don't waste it on these ports.
No, but I want the ports.
I want the ports too, but I'm saying don't give me these 3D ports. I've got Sevi Islands and Fire Red. I've got Battle.
No, but that's the thing. You have them right now, but I guess that's true. You could just like port them on the Switch.
Just port it. That's what I'm saying.
If they do that, yeah, that's true. They could do that as well. But I feel like they can't charge $60, right? We have to think from the incentives of the people who are producing these games, right? Wouldn't they want to like, let's make a new thing, let's bring it to the people? Because I'm nostalgic for Fire Red Leaf Green, but there's a lot of new people who aren't, right? Like my niece. I always think about my niece. She's not going to play a game that came out in 2004.
I can tell you right now that if we ever got any of the classic Pokemon games on Switch, they are not gonna, at the very least, they would release them with the whole like expansion pack part of Switch Online.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I cannot fathom a world where they like just include that with the service. I feel like they would almost like, I think they would do what Dusty said, where they would make them a separate game so that they can charge for them. Because the moment, like the games on the 3DS, like Yellow and like Crystal especially, from the moment they released, they were at the top of the eShop charts until the eShop closed down for like 7 straight years. Like there's no way they're just going to include those games with the service if they ever bring them back. And
Definitely.
I don't think they'll like charge for them independently unless they go back to like a virtual console type experience. So I think that if we are going to get these games, it is going to be sort of like a remake type situation. Like,
see, and
I just feel like there's more possibility with a remake, right? If you make
is.
I'll buy a cheap remake if it adds a little bit, even if it's the same experience. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm a Game Freak shill. What can I say?
I get it, and I am too. Like I picked up Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl for $60. I'm sitting here saying I do not want a Let's Go Johto, and I'm sitting here saying I do not want an Ilka-made game. If next year they announce we are having an Ilka-made Let's Go Johto, I'm going to be first in line at GameStop the day it comes out, and I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to say, guys, I love this, but I'll complain about it 3 months later, you know?
It's Johto after all, so.
Right, it is Johto. That's another thing, too. I mean, just an objectively amazing region. But, what I'm saying is Diamond and Pearl, Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl was so close to Diamond and Pearl, it did not feel like it was, in hindsight, I paid it and I would pay it again, but it doesn't feel worth $60. Whereas what I would like instead is like on the eShop, the Pokemon Yellow, was it $10?
Yeah, they were
$10. I will pay $10 on the Switch to get Pokemon Fire Red. I'll
buy all of them.
I'll pay $20 to get. I would pay $30 for Fire Red. Do $60 and do a Game Boy bundle that comes with all the do it bundles by gen. So here's a $60 Gen 1 and 2 bundle. So it comes with red, blue, yellow, crystal, gold, and silver, and then a Gen 3 bundle that's Fire Red, Leaf Green, Emerald, Ruby, Sapphire. I would totally pay for that. I do not want to pay $60 to replay Diamond and Pearl. A worse Diamond and Pearl.
And it would be $70 probably.
In terms of... Well, Diamond and Pearl was... I mean, would it? Because Diamond and Pearl was $60.
No, but aren't Switch games like going up in cost?
I thought that was only Tears of the Kingdom.
I feel like that's they're trying to see what they can get away with.
Someone corrected me on that when I mentioned that and said it was only Tears of the Kingdom and that wasn't true. But if that's the case, either way, I'd pay $70 for that. But I'm not paying $70 for a Diamond and Pearl. I will.
True.
That's the issue. I will, but I won't like
$100 for an old game. Well, all right. We can talk about this forever. I do want to talk about Histrobea Chronicles.
Yes.
Somehow it's already been an hour. Hoops, this is a platform for you. Tell us about Histrobe. Tell the people who don't know about Histrobe. Tell us about Histrobe. You are making a brand new monster catching video game, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. But second of all, for those who don't know, I am taking a crack at making my own monster catching video game a la Pokemon, just basically like what I would do if I was in the driver's seat, and Histrobea Chronicles is the result of that. It's a game that's it's a 2D pixel approach to the monster catching genre. It's Wild West inspired. That's like the other key thing about it that I think is going to be a lot of fun is like with Pokemon, you obviously have like you have every generation is set in a region that's based on like a certain part of the world, you know. With this, I decided I wanted to attack it from like a different angle, and so this is going to be like points in time that the game is based
cool
around. And this
I love that.
That
is really cool.
Wild West. So that's what's going. That's the gist with that. There's a lot of other exciting elements to it that I can't wait to get into as I start to like reveal more stuff. But basically, it's coming together well. I am really, really excited about it because even though I'm super biased, obviously, I think like what is being like constructed is really special, and I just can't wait to like show it off. And I'm gonna be doing some stuff fairly soon, so I'm looking forward to it.
Is there like a timeline of when we can play this game?
Not as of right now. It's not like to the point where I can say, oh yeah, I'll have it like ready by like such and such date. Like right now, It's just like, this is what I got. This is what I'm working on. Like, stay tuned. But it is like getting to the point where we can like sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel. Attempting to like make a game when you have no game making experience is like really intimidating, and I was like almost intimidated out of doing it because like the list of things you got to do is so huge, and I have like so much more respect for developers now, like even on small games, because this is sort of like relatively like a small project, and it's like insane the amount of things you have to do. So that's why I'm not gonna like it's basically just going to be ready when it's ready, but it's getting there, and I'm excited about it. And like when it does, like I am planning on doing like a demo release when that becomes
so cool.
feasible and things like that to get it in people's hands. And it's getting there. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and like things are starting to be checked off the to-do list, which is really exciting.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, I think there's always, since Pokemon has launched, there's always been people who are influenced by Pokemon, right? Because it is such a great formula. And I now I'm starting to like the idea that like our generation of people grow up, start making our own games, right? And they're all inspired by, Pokemon in some way. So you have, there are 5 starter Histrobe. Is that what they're called? Histrobe is like the monster. Mm-hmm. There's Cobron, Voltup, Bublu, Embrol, and then there's what's the owl? Or the hawk? Peckute. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's really cool how you have pretty much 5 starters to choose from. I think that's a really interesting concept. We're all familiar with the 3 starter Pokemon. How did you decide on 5?
So basically I approached this with the idea that obviously it's influenced by Pokemon, but I very much did not want it to be a copycat. So I wanted to change up things as much as I could to make it sort of an original experience. And I felt like the iconic, like, choose your 3 starter Pokemon, as iconic and beloved as that is, that's very much a Pokemon thing. So I wanted to like put my own spin on it. And the way that I came up with was basically these 5 starters that you begin the game with. They're not technically called starters, but the 5
do they have a name?
You begin the game with. Yeah, I'm calling them Fateful Histrobe because you have a fateful encounter with them, and that that actually goes into how you like get them in the first place. You don't choose them. The way that you're going to like obtain them is going to depend on like what you do at the beginning of the game. So you're
this reminds me of Mystery Dungeon.
Yeah, it kind of sort of is in a way. Like, it's not like the quiz, but basically it's like you start the game and you have like your opening things that you do, and like there's this part of the game that you can go to like where you encounter your starter, and like between the beginning of the game and that point, different things that you do will affect like which starter appears before you. So if you just go from point A to point B and just go and get your starter, one of them will pop up. But if you go and like talk to people and like converse with like just cool. Like explore, another one will pop up. And so I thought sort of just I don't know, trying something different in that way would be a lot of fun. And I'm also getting feedback too from people, so I think there is going to be an option of like, okay, sort of like Mystery Dungeon. If you don't like the one you get at first, you can sort of like re-roll and like do it again.
Cool.
But I think kind of that's sort of the theme, is like just changing things up and like having a fresh take on this formula, and then also combined with like, if I was literally like, I want this to be a separate thing from Pokemon, right. Like very much so, but like it very much has sort of a vibe of like, if I was making this type of game, this is what I would do, and that's kind of like what it is.
I like the like that you leave it like two decisions you make or things you do to kind of, it kind of reminds me of like how in the anime, you know, most of the times like the character doesn't look at the Pokemon and pick it. You know, like Ash woke up late, so he got Pikachu. You know, and like even May kind of, that was the one she kind of got attached to, was the Torchic. Same with Dawn, she got attached to the Piplup. So I love that kind of take on it. It's a great way to like, once you get it, you're attached to it already, because you know like this was meant to be. This is who my pick is. Like, not because I picked it, but because the universe picked it. I love that.
Fateful, yeah. Fateful encounter.
Fateful encounter. A fateful Histrobe. That's so sick.
That's cool.
How so I'm assuming they're not Pokemon, so there's not going to be a Pokedex, but is there like a manual? Is there like an encyclopedia? How many Histrobe do you think might be in this
you're
game?
allowed to tell us if you can't tell us anything.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that there is kind of an equivalent, but I think it's like, it's different to what you might see in other Pokemon clones. It's actually something I'm going to get into the next time I like make a in-depth trailer video about all this, which is going to be not too far in the future, depending on when you guys upload this, but it's coming. So I'm working on it. Cool. And then as far as what was the other thing you asked me?
How many Histrobe do you think there will be?
Right.
I don't know if you already have like a map, like a roadmap for all of this, right? Are you just kind of like working on it and figuring it out as you go, or are there very like clear cut like objectives that you have for this game?
No, yeah. So like a lot, basically like the groundwork of like why you're playing is already set in stone. So there are a good amount of Histrobe. I think I can go ahead and say this. There are over 100, so there's a pretty good amount.
Nice. That's good.
And the goal, and that the reason why is the sort of the main objective is to catch all of them, because it's a creature catching game. Like the goal is gonna be like kind of like sort of like Legends Arceus, how like you want to catch every one of them. Like that is not just like the sub goal of the game in like like Red and Blue or Ruby and Sapphire, where
it's not optional. It's like
it actually does something.
Like like it's more tangible, like in Histrobea Chronicles, where like this is actually part of the plot. But it's also very open, so it's like the game is, the plan for it is to be like an open world experience in like a 2D sense anyway, to where you can go like whatever direction you want right away and just sort of like catch the Histrobe and like kind of like build your team and like have your own experience. There will be sort of like a direction you're sort of geared towards for like story reasons. But it's set up in a way to where you can kind of do your own thing, go play off to the side, and then sort of like wrap back around and like do the story like when you want to do the story, basically. So it's kind of a mix of that fun of just like goofing off in an open world game and enjoying like the actual gameplay mechanics that make the game so fun.
That's
combined
awesome.
with like a more narrative driven experience, because that's another thing that I would do if I was in the driver's seat of a game like this, is give a game like this, like a Pokemon or whatever, more story. Because obviously in Pokemon, you don't typically have like a super like heavy story most of the time. And so I wanted to have a game like this that has story. And so it's kind of like, it's a balance of those like two elements.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah, I love the idea of blending open world with the 2D thing. I guess because of just how we've gotten Pokemon games, I've never like associated in my mind that a 2D game cannot be linear.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
No, 2D.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think it's actually worked out really well, even though this is like my first time doing all of this, because that was kind of like the thought I had in my mind going forward. And as it's come together, I've kind of just been like doing a lot of like, oh, this sounds like a good idea, so I'll do this, or just like doing what I think sounds good or cool. But it's actually come together really like cleanly to where it's like, oh, wait a minute, like this actually is going to work out like pretty nicely, and like things are set up to where this will actually be really smooth and feel natural. So it's to the point as well to where like all of these different pieces that I've sort of had, like all these different ideas, they're starting to all sort of be like stitched together into like one piece of like the actual game itself, instead of just like all these ideas. And it's actually like coming together well, and like all the pieces of the puzzle are they're like fitting in place. And so I'm super excited to actually like get to show more of it to people, because I think people are really gonna like what they see.
Have you taken inspiration from any other video games? Because when I look at the art style of Histrobea Chronicles, it's 2D. It reminds me of Stardew Valley, which I've sunk a lot of time into, which is a game that also, that's like a farming simulator game, but there's also elements of like Minecraft where you can like dig through caves, there's fighting, there's combat, but it's a farming game. And that's also a game where there's like, you can have relations with other people, or other characters. You can like go into people's worlds. There's, a passage of time. It's pretty open world, or it's pretty, I guess, choose your own adventure.
Immersive, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you've played that game, but that's what I'm thinking of right now.
Okay, that's an interesting comparison. I've not played Stardew Valley, but it does have like influence from other games, I would say. Gameplay wise, I would say there is going to be some influence from like the collectathon type of genre, where there's going to be a lot of things to just sort of pick up and interact with as you're going throughout the world. There's obviously going to be the Histrobe that you want to catch and collect that way, but there's also going to be a lot of items and stuff that you can find, because it's like, once again, it's this Wild West type game. You're on the frontier. Cool. If you like, there's going to be a lot of supplies that you're going to be like picking up to use on your adventure, as opposed to like necessarily just buying everything from like a store. So there's that type of inspiration going for it. And then from like the plot perspective, there's actually a lot of inspiration from like Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts type stuff. It's not as convoluted as Kingdom Hearts is, but I've always really loved like the art style of those games, and like I do love the stories that like Kingdom Hearts tells, even though the plots are like all over the place. So there's influence there as well. So if I were to like describe, like some people actually have in like comments and stuff said that it looks sort of like a Final Fantasy Pokemon type crossover. And in a way, I would say that like that's a fair assumption. I would say it's like the gameplay of Pokemon or of a monster catching game, combined with like the plot heaviness, if you will, the plot focusedness of like a Kingdom Hearts. That's kind of like more or less what you can expect. But it's kind of like a simplified version of Kingdom Hearts, I guess. So it's like easy to follow. So
right, makes sense.
Are there because you mentioned before, like when you were first beginning to talk about it, that it's given you like a whole new sense of appreciation for like developers of small games, big games, all that kind of stuff. Is there anything, because like I think about how Pokemon's had a lot of controversies, like, you know, you think about things like Nat Dex, and you think about all the graphics and performance issues, post games being lacking, all kinds of things. Is there anything from maybe Pokemon or maybe even another franchise that like you enjoy, video game franchise, that like you've come to kind of turn your opinion on or around on, like having developed a game yourself?
Yeah, with that experience, that added experience.
Right. So yeah, it's mainly just like giving them the respect they deserve. Like,
right,
I'm making this little dinky game with like a small team of people, and it's like the most intimidating thing because it's just like sometimes I look at all the things I have to do and it's like monumental how much stuff goes into just like making this work. Like you think about big things, you think about small things. There's so many things that it's just like you feel like your list of things to do is never ending. And so I feel like I just have a greater sense of appreciation for what these companies are doing. And yeah, while they have obviously more resources and more people to work on it, it's like the principle is still the same. And so like for things like the National Dex cut, like I was never on the hate train with that, but now I'm really not on the hate train with that, because you're talking about thousands of individual like creatures and monsters.
Yeah.
When you factor in like additional forms and regional variants and mega evolutions and all this stuff, it's like in the thousands easily. And it's just like, it's not realistic, because that's like getting all of that stuff ready, all those models and all those individual Pokemon, that's not even scratching the surface of everything else you need in the game. As far
that's
as
why they need to outsource to Ilka, right? They need to outsource to Ilka so they can set up everything right there, and then they can just keep producing more games.
I mean, for the models, they do outsource. Creatures does the models, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. But yeah, it's just like when it comes to like, yes, they should have their games well polished. Yes, they should do all these other things to make sure when they put out the game that it's like it's in a state that is well put together. But in terms of like the workload they have, I totally have a newfound respect for them, and I wish people would like just get off their back sometimes, because it is a lot to deal with, especially when you consider that like the fact that they are Pokemon and this is like the biggest media franchise in the world. They've got a lot of pressure, and they've got a lot of other like things, especially Game Freak in particular, because they are like the engine that drives the rest of the series, the franchise. A lot of different people coming from a lot of different directions, like putting pressure on them. So I genuinely feel like they're doing what they can, and sometimes it works out for the best. Sometimes they get a little tripped up, but like I think they're honestly like doing a good job for like what they're doing, and they've constantly shown that they are improving, because like with Scarlet and Violet, even for all the problems it has, it's like night and day compared to Sword and Shield. So like,
see, what's crazy is like there's even we are headed in the right direction, but there are things in Scarlet and Sword and Shield now, looking back, where I'm like, I kind of prefer that in Sword and Shield than I do Scarlet and Violet. Like, there's definitely, like, I feel like I'm picking and choosing all the time about what I prefer better.
Well, that's how it is with every Pokemon game, though.
It is, it is.
You could just look back and be like, oh yeah, I prefer this.
It's why people still hold Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black and White,
Gengar
Emerald.
has never looked as good as it did in Gen 2.
Yeah. I think too, like, I often see people like, well, the Pokemon Company should wait another year before releasing a game. And like, people just don't get like the pressures that's on them, because then even outside of game development, you have external things like TCG all relies on, the TCG can't just drop the Gen 10 Pokemon cards whenever they want. They have to wait till the games release it. Same with the anime, same with they have marketing like plushes and stuff, and then you've got spin-off games like we saw new Pokemon Snap included a lot of Sword and Shield Pokemon, or actually don't think it did a lot, but it had some of them, and you obviously can't drop that until Sword and Shield are out, so it definitely is, that has always been a thought of mine, is like, because I see that complaint a lot, they should just wait an extra year before putting out a game, and it's like, it's not that simple. They can't just go. You also do have Nintendo, who's also telling them, hey, we don't have a Breath of the Wild or Mario game coming out.
Also, do you really want to wait you want to wait a year for another Pokemon game? Like, I really don't want to wait that much.
Obviously, I don't either, but some people do. Some people like say they would trade the Scarlet and Violet graphics being how they should be, how they deem they should be, at least, if they waited one more year.
I need like other hobbies. Pokemon is the only game I play, so
I know that's
probably
my
where the
issue
problem
too.
comes from.
That's my issue too.
Did you guys get your Gen 5 Sitting Cuties yet? Speaking of plushies,
I'm about to. I've got them in the cart.
I ordered a couple. Well, so I also want to ask about, like, Saul is a big fan of beta Pokemon. Do you have any beta Histrobe? Do you have any Histrobe designs where you're like, this is sick, but it's not going to come to fruition this time, right?
Right. Yeah. So that's actually was a part of the process. Was one of the first things I did was build out the roster of Histrobe that were going to be in the game, and like determine how many is a good number to have and all those types of things. And my goal because they're like the central like point of the game. That's like why you play a monster catching game, is for the
right.
So I want it to be as just like top notch as possible. And so like I would be coming up with ideas and making them, and every once in a while I'd sort of either for like, sometimes it was sort of a logistics thing where it was like, oh, I need more of this type of mon, and I feel like this one is expendable, so maybe I'll drop this one. But a lot of times it was just like, I'm not really feeling this design anymore, and so I would like drop it. And
that's cool.
There aren't a ton of those. Like I most of the ones I came up with ended up like in the final game, but there are a few, so hopefully at some point I'll get to like shed some light on those, because it was a pretty cool process.
Just years from now, you'll look back at them and be like, you know what, I need to put these guys in a game now. Just like beta Pokemon, it's like you want them now, right? So
yeah, like it's cool. Like I'll tell you one interesting story. So when I was very first starting this project, it was like right after I started uploading the Pokemon Cardinal videos. I knew I was obviously going to do something next, and so I was like starting to like figure out what I wanted to do. And there was a period of time where I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to make this a Pokemon thing or make it my own original thing. I was kind of going back and forth. So like by default, it started as a Pokemon thing. And while it was in this stage of being more of a Pokemon-centric thing, there was a grass starter that I came up with that, through the transition to this being an original thing, it ended up getting cut. So I have a quote-unquote cut grass starter in the vault. That
that one day
in the game,
that's epic.
I'll be able to show it sometimes.
Yeah. How do you handle like the Pokemon design process? I guess my first question is, this is a multi-step question really, but my first question is, did you design any of them, or did you and if you did outsource, did you know I want a rocky bear, and then send it out, or like, did you just say, give me your best ideas? I'm really curious about that process.
Yeah, so I mean, like, the artwork itself, and therefore, like, the designs as you see them illustrated, were done by my wonderful artist, Oscar Belmonte, also known as Our Gray Wind. He does a great job, so he helps me a lot. But in terms of, like, the concepts of them, like a rocky bear, like, all the ideas for all the monsters come from me, and I actually got a lot of experience with, like, monster creation with Pokemon Cardinal, and I found sort of a design philosophy that I feel like works really well for me and that I like, and so I was able to carry that over into Histrobea Chronicles and really just, like, run with it. So a lot of the basically, like, all of these Histrobe have very specific inspirations. They are tied together. Like, there's multiple layers going into them, so it's not just a rocky bear. There is a reason why it's a bear and a rock, which you'll find out as it, like, grows and evolves and things like that.
Yeah, for the record, I didn't mean to, like, generalize the design there.
No. You're totally fine, but, like, yeah, there's the ideas are basically all my own with a little help from my artist Oscar, and that was a really fun process. I've honestly thought, though, now that we kind of bring that up, that it would be really fun to, like, give some of these designs to, like, Loxton, for instance, since he breaks down Pokemon designs, and see, like,
oh, that's a sick collab.
You can find out about this. Like, can you decipher what actually is going on here?
That's really cool.
I've always had a great idea. I've always had a hunch that, like, Loxton, like those videos, right, that, like, go super in depth in explaining things. I'm always like, I feel like some of that is a stretch and just added because it makes sense, but maybe wasn't the original intent by the artist. So that'd be awesome if you guys did a collab where he just, like, goes into
like,
it.
he comes back like, and he finds
this and this and this. Even. And you're like, yeah, that's what I meant, totally.
Yeah, like, I've had that, like, thought for a while that would be fun. So
that would be really cool.
Maybe I'll approach him with that at some point, but yeah, the whole monster design, like, all the monsters more or less, like, come from my brain and then are helped come to life by the artists.
Nice.
So,
speaking of the Rocky Bear, I'm Team Cubron. That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Pet Cute all the way.
I think I'm Pet Cute. I'm either Pet Cute or Cubron.
If you decide to not allow a reroll, I'm going to, when this releases one day, I'm going to be hitting you up and going, hey, how do I get Pet Cute? Because I need it.
I think my game's broken. Right. I keep getting Volt up.
Yeah, so first of all, I think the reroll thing is going to be there because, like, I want the game to be, like, player friendly, and I know people have their favorites and stuff, but also there is, as a part of the objective of getting all of the Histrobe and completing the decks, quote unquote, there is a way that you'll be able to get the other starters after the one you get. It'll just be, like, later on in the game, and that'll be something you sort of, like, figure out.
Another feature that was in Legends Arceus that you've carried over. I love it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, I wouldn't say necessarily, like, just like, ooh, that's a good idea, carry this over. But it kind of worked out that way. But if it is any consolation, as far as the Fateful Histrobe go, the starters, first of all, I am huge on starters, and when it comes to Pokemon, I've been disappointed by some of the recent starters. So I made sure that everyone, at least in my own opinion anyway, they are cool and they look good, and they're a starter that I would personally have. So I don't think there's necessarily a wrong choice with which one you go with. I think that said, though, my personal favorites, it's kind of a tie between Cubron and Bublu. So
Is that you factoring in how they grow, or is that?
Yeah, he knows.
True, he knows.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of both. I love them for their like beginner stage, but it also has to do with how they grow. So
I'm Team Pet Cute all the way. You throw a bird in front of me, I'm likely to love it. I'm big bird guy.
All right.
What are you?
There are some birds in the decks.
Nice.
So
Dusty, I didn't catch what team you were. Are you what team are you feeling?
I really do like Pet Cute. I think Voltup speaks to me, but I don't typically care for like puppy or like cat Pokemon. Like I don't know, like Luxio is cute, or what is it? Yeah,
Shinx is the baby.
Yeah. Shinx is cute, but I'm also just kind of like, I don't really care. It is really cute. I probably would pick Voltup. I think I just have like a type that I'm like trying to like stick to. I like Cubron. It reminds me of Roly-Coly. I don't really care for horses, even though Embrel is really dope.
They're all great. Yeah, they're all great. Just Pet Cute. It's a bird, so
like any starter, I gotta see like what it turns into.
Yeah, there's a variety for sure. So whatever way you go, and as you get to see like the whole roster, like I think, I mean, at least I'm hoping, but I feel like people will enjoy like the variety and the different mons that are available.
Absolutely.
So, the other thing that influenced the roster a little bit is the fact that I wanted to also have like cool ways to obtain some of the Histrobe, because I always like in Pokemon, for instance, when you have like some sort of like event mon.
Yeah, that is really cool.
It's like you can't catch it in the wild, but you get it by doing such and such thing.
It's like a sub-legendary, right? It feels that way. Like it's almost like a sub-legendary. Like it feels like that in the game. When you find Snorlax for the first time, you're like, whoa, this is a monster.
Yeah, kind of in that way. So like, and the other thing I wanted to do is incorporate side quests, like more like actual side quests.
That's cool.
There's going to be some of the Histrobe that you'll just find in the wild, but then there will be others that you'll have to like talk to this person and they'll say, oh, I need some help. And like your ultimate goal, your ultimate like reward at the end will be this like rare Histrobe that you can't normally find in the wild. So
yeah,
that's cool.
Like that going on too.
That's really neat. I like that. I've always loved when they made it a bit more special than, I mean, like what you said, Dusty, like how Snorlax always felt special because you can't just find one in the grass. You have to get the Poke-Flute, wake it up, and those kinds of things. So that's neat. Absolutely. That you've got some that you're locking to. You have to work for too. It's also more rewarding in that sense too. Like you know, if I hadn't talked to that person, I would have never gotten what is now my favorite of these Histrobe. You know,
right? Yeah, and it encourages you to explore and like talk to people in that way. Because I'm always a person in all video games, but like especially in Pokemon, where I like to explore and like talk to everyone to see what they have to say. So, like I've sort of tried to give those things like exploring and talking to people and all this stuff like more substance, so it gives you more reason to want to do that. So
I'm gonna love this game if there's like a lot of items to find in the trash cans, because I check all the trash cans.
You check all the trash cans.
Well, I don't know about trash cans per se, but yeah, there's gonna be like
or receptacles,
items
or
sort of littered all over the place. Fine, and yeah, that's a big part of like what I wanted to do. Like I said, was to like not only have the monsters be there to collect the Histrobe, but also have items and things like that actually like make you interested in just kind of like walking around and like things that catch your attention. So there will be a lot of things like that for sure.
I've got a lot of people asking me if they want me to ask you if you have another Fakemon region on the horizon.
As of right now, all of my creative juices are going into this project. So like as far as like a Fakemon specific region, I don't at the moment, just because I'm still working on this Histrobea Chronicles project. But anyone who is trying to like split hairs and say that like, oh, this isn't like Pokemon, so I'm not as interested, I would encourage them to at least give it a shot, like give it a fair shake, because the whole reason that I made this was because when Pokemon Cardinal was coming out, everyone was asking me, oh, you should make this playable, you should make this playable. Well, as much as I would like to, Pokemon owns the right to the Pokemon series, and like I don't want to make something that has the Pokemon name and like have it tied to my channel, and
you ain't trying to poke that bear.
Yeah, that
way too risky. So I decided like the next best thing would be to just make my own thing, because like it still is going to be like familiar, it's still going to appeal to Pokemon fans, but it's going to be something that I can like do whatever I want with, and we can go so much bigger than just like a video series. So like as a Pokemon fan myself, this is a game, and once again, I know I'm biased, that I would love to play the heck out of. And as it's been coming together, it's been just like, this is going to be so cool when it's all together. And I genuinely think people will have a blast with it if they give it a shot. So if you're kind of on the edge and you're kind of like that Pokemon purist type person, just give it a fair shake, because I'm honestly putting my heart and soul into this, and I genuinely think that Pokemon fans will like it a lot once it's out in the open.
I can't wait to play. I'll definitely be playing. Yeah.
I'm excited for more updates.
Yeah. Hoops, I've been a huge fan of your channel, but I feel like you've been absolutely crushing it this last year with all of your. You pretty much you take a concept, you go, here's a theory, and then you build and you commission brand new Fakemon to go along with whatever that gimmick might be. So like one of your most recent videos was. What if the Kanto birds, the legendary birds, were Paradox? What would those look like? So you had like original art commissioned. I absolutely love it. I really just want to give you props. But I'm also curious, do you have a roadmap for the next 5 to 10 years for your channel?
I don't know what's happening next week. You asking this man years ahead.
I mean, I don't know what's going to be going on necessarily in like 2027, like specifically, but right. I mean,
you got your game, right? You got all sorts of stuff going on. I guess I'm just
right.
Trying to...
Yeah, I do have a roadmap in the sense that like I want to have something big that's going on that I can build towards, because like YouTube for me has sort of been like about goals. At first it was get to 100,000 subscribers, and anything that helped me do that is what I was going to do. That was the big goal. I hit that, and it was great, but I'm not the type of person to be like, yay, I did my thing, and then go right off into the sunset. Like, it was my mindset from there was like, okay, what's the next goal? What can we do? And so I'm always kind of trying to like climb the ladder, if you will, and that's kind of what Pokemon Cardinal was. That was my big thing at that time frame. And now my current big goal is Histrobea Chronicles, and like making my own game that, who knows, like if it all goes well, if it all goes as planned, will like be out there for you to be able to play and purchase, and maybe
can we purchase it? Yeah,
like that's it's gonna be the ultimate goal. It's like all new territory for me. So like I'm in uncharted water. That is gonna be the ultimate like objective, is to try and like get it out in an official capacity. And so for me it's just all about kind of just continuing to grow and doing things that allow me to grow. And that was a big motivating factor behind Histrobea Chronicles as well, because when I made Pokemon Cardinal, even though it was like meant to be this big thing that sort of knocked everyone's socks off, something that happened that I didn't really anticipate or plan on was it sort of starting a trend of other people kind of making their own regions. That you brought up the what if like scenario videos I do with Fakemon, because I've actually noticed a couple days ago, I was just on like my homepage and it was like in YouTube search and stuff like that, and I saw like several other videos from several different people that were doing like the same format, that it was like what if Pokemon blah 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 blah, and they were making Fakemon with that, so like the same format that I have done. And that's not like, I'm not like trying to call anyone out or anything, but I feel like my videos have sort of like inspired people to like do.
Yeah, you've definitely inspired me. I don't know if it was my videos, but I've got a couple in the works with a couple of artists where literally it's like, here's a theory, let's make a Fakemon to accompany it. So 100% you've inspired me, if that means anything.
Well, I'm glad that I inspired you. That means a lot, actually. But so I've sort of noticed that people like I don't say this to try and like make myself look like a big deal or anything, but I have noticed that it seems like stuff that I'm doing, people are like following in the footsteps of, or trying to follow in the footsteps of, which I think is amazing and is super flattering. But with that said, like if I'm sort of like inspiring people to also do all this cool stuff, I don't necessarily want to like just tread water and be at that same level. Like I want to keep like inspiring people to like do the next thing. And so I want to like go up to the next level, which for me is making my own game in my own world. So that's kind of like the big focus for me right now. And yeah, like I said, I genuinely think it's going to be super special. I have a lot of very big plans for it. And like once this stuff gets rolling out, like I just cannot wait for you guys to see it. And I would just encourage everyone who likes Pokemon, likes monster catching games in general, just give it a look, give it a try, because like this is a game that's being made by a hardcore fan of this type of stuff. And everyone likes to say like, oh, they should let fans work on the Pokemon games, you know?
This
like,
is
that would
it.
be so cool because
right?
fans have so many good ideas. This is that's basically what I'm doing. Like it's going to be an original thing. It's not going to be Pokemon, obviously, but that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm doing it for like my followers basically, because they were the ones that were like, this would be great to play. So I'm like, I'm literally building a game that they can play off the ground. So I would encourage them to at least give it a look.
Yo, absolutely. All of the links will be in the description to find Hoops on YouTube, Twitter, wherever he is. All his other Histrobea Chronicles links will be in the description. Do you guys have any more questions for Hoops? Or Hoops, is there anything else that you would like to say?
I would just like to say thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it. You guys have been awesome hosts, and I definitely have noticed you guys around on Twitter. And
dude, thank you so much for being here.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, it's
great having you.
It is. It's great to see you, Hoops.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be here.
All right, peace out, guys.
Bye.
See ya.